For those of you that know me, know I've been competing for quite a while. I started competing with my first 6.555 back in 2000, I think it was 14 or 15. Got in with precision rifle in 2016 and ordered my first 6BR rifle in 2017. And at the time, I saw that the 6 millimeters were really trending, and 6BR started really to become a thing. So I wanted to get on that bandwagon pretty fast. Components were fairly cheap. You can get a once fired Lapua brass here in Sweden for the 6BR at around 1 krona per piece of brass, which is equivalent of today's value of 10 cents. So you get 10 pieces of brass for $1. So I was looking at cost. I was building it on a Tikka action. Mags weren't really available, but that didn't stop me. I engineered the shit out of an original AICS mags before mag kits was a thing in Sweden. Made it work pretty good, and for many years the 6mm served me very well up until 2022 when I started thinking about switching. The 6mm served me well for many years. I won national championships, I won the French championships, I got probably north of 30, close to 40 podium finishes with the 6BR. But in 2022, early on in the spring, I shot the French finale. Wonderful match. Where the match was held, the backdrop was all sand. So it's very easy to see see where the bullet landed in the dirt. It was also all the targets were on straps, so it was also pretty easy to see if you had an impact or not. It was naturally pretty hard to see where on the target you impacted, but if you really paid attention, that was possible too. My next match after that, I went to Raton, New Mexico, and it was pretty heavy mirage down there. Probably not as heavy as many guys who live in warmer climates experience, but for a Scandinavian, it was pretty hefty at times, especially laying down on the ground in the middle of the day. Hard seeing the targets and even harder seeing where those rounds went when you didn't hit it. And that's probably the first time I really started thinking about going with something that packed more of a punch and carried more lead downrange to be able to see the splashes in the dirt better, and also to see where on the targets the rounds landed at extended ranges. And I'm not talking about past 1,000. I mean, even past 600, 700, 800 yards or meters, whatever is your jam. You can really tell the difference with heavier cartridges. It's like 6.5s and 25s or something like that. 25s wasn't a thing at the time, but it was coming. After analyzing some of the video footage that I had from that match, I thought of one particular moment where I was pretty sure I saw the impact on the target, but the spotter didn't say anything, and I had my squad mates call out the impact.
Impact.
That was an impact. Impact!
Yeah.
That's right. That was me.
Impact! Impact!
But I wish I would, but at that time it was pretty hard to see, and I wish I would have had a little bit more horsepower hitting the plates. Not necessarily a faster bullet, but something heavier, more BC and easier to see. After that was the World Championship, where I saw Morgan King shooting 153s. It was the same venues that I shot the French finale at, and I could really tell there was no question if he hit a target on the edge, the hanger, or whatever. It was clearly an impact, and you could really see it kick up a lot of dirt. At the time, I had started shooting with more shoulder pressure into the rifle as well, so the recoil wasn't that big of a deal. Now it really got into my head that I need to probably go with something heavier or something faster. I hadn't really decided yet. So moving back to the whole cost efficiency thing, Lapua brass was still super affordable. And if I was going up to a 6.547 or a 6.5 Creedmoor, the brass would have to be bought brand new at 20 times the cost. So I ended up going briefly over to the 6-dasher side to see what happened. Shot the Viking Trail match with the 6-dasher, and it didn't give me any advantage over the 6BR. I was still shooting with a lot of shoulder pressure, so I was still able to see a lot of what was going on downrange. But in the first day of the Viking Trail, where the winds were extremely unpredictable, very hard to see where your rounds landed against the very dark backdrop, and some of them against the mountainside or in the dirt. That's just about when I decided I'm going 6.5. I'm definitely going 6.5. So this was 2023, and I'd already ordered the 6.5 barrel. Now, a lot of things changed in 2023. My wife and I had our first child, and I already knew that I wasn't going to shoot as much as I did in the past. I was still going to try to practice as much as I could. I showed up at a couple of matches with the 6.5. It did well. I didn't feel like I was being held back at shorter rangers and faster paced matches because I just changed up my entire style of shooting. It wasn't until 2024, early on, I signed up for the Twisted Barrel match in Arkansas. It was the first the first real big match that I was going to shoot with that cartridge, the 6.5-47 that I picked in 2023 to chamber my barrel in. I opted to go with 140 LDMs for most things and 153 A-tips for when it really mattered. And the Arkansas match, I went with the 140 LDMs and loaded up pretty much all of the ammo on the Dillon 750. I threw the powder on it. I had a bullet feeder, everything. Because being a parent, you don't always have as much time as you'd want to have in doing those small little things like, spending that little extra time on your reload. So I ended up going to Arkansas, hanging out with some really good friends, shot the match, ended up 12th place with 177 impacts, and first place I think was 185. After shooting the Arkansas match, looking back at it, I really feel like I should have switched over to a 6.5 earlier than instead of staying with the 6mm and going with the dasher. It would have saved me a lot of time. Now, going with the 6.5-47 wasn't the easiest of choices. Investing in sufficient amounts of brass, bullets, new dies, the whole thing, barrels. It's not a small thing, especially here in Scandinavia. Now, if you personally don't know whether you go for a 6mm or a 6.5, it's pretty hard to tell you if you're going to go for either of the two. But the 6.5, I would feel, does give you a lot of more signature on target, a lot of more signature in the dirt. If you're not running in a very sandy, dry conditions or up north like we are, 6.5 have a lot of advantages over that. The style of matches have gone away from the more not so stable props and very high-paced stages. We have longer times, but the targets are also at longer ranges and longer distances. Targets are generally smaller, so it helps to be able to make those small corrections if you hit it on the edge and it's a target that's on a hanger. It's good to see if it was a left or a right side and make those small adjustments. Now, if the matches you intend to shoot are more mid to short range matches, then the 6mm is still probably the way to go. But for me, I'm trying to focus more on the field style of matches with longer ranges and more natural terrain. And for me, then I feel like the 6.5mm is definitely where I want to be. And it also feels good to go back to the 6.5. That's where I started the whole thing. As it looks now, I'll probably be staying around that bullet diameter for quite some time.